What's going on, guys? So this should be a pretty interesting video for those of you who have followed not just this truck, but the truck I had prior to this and possibly even the truck I had prior to that. The point of today's video is to talk about truck upgrades. It's to talk about the things that I think have helped us, the things that I kind of regretted doing, and things that you may be considering doing, but you're kind of on the fence. You want to know if it's truly something that's going to help, because there's a few things that I just get questioned about all the time. A lot of people want to know if I still recommend like the Centromatic balancing rings, airbags, the Silastic Shackles. I never put them on this truck, but I put them on some previous trucks, and I'll explain a little bit more why I never put them on this truck, and other things. So this is going to be an interesting topic. I think you're going to enjoy it, but more importantly, it may actually help you if you're on the fence in terms of buying certain things. And I'm going to go over some upgrades that were added, again, that I kind of regret. So hang tight, I'll be right back. All right, so first and foremost, let's start with suspension upgrades. Because of all the suspension enhancements that I've done over the past, 5 or 6 years to various trucks, I've kind of settled on what I've done to this truck as the way I'd want to go even moving forward. Now, I know a lot of folks are contemplating spending a lot of money on things like a Kelderman setup or some of the other, full suspension liquid spring, change outs where you're really going to an entirely different type of suspension than what the factory installed on the truck. I don't think I would ever do that. Even if it were a sponsored segment, I don't think I would ever do that. And let me explain why. So the suspension setup I currently have on this truck is really pretty basic. I swapped out the factory shocks that at the time were Rancho branded shocks from Ford. So it was a Ford designed shock that was tuned, I suppose, to the way Rancho would tune it, and then they were labeled Rancho. I didn't really ever care for those, so I removed those pretty much right away, and I installed the Bilstein shocks that were actually on my previous truck on here. I had them still, they were relatively new. I had to change a bushing out to get them to fit over the bolt on the back. But I went with Bilstein shocks on this truck that were on my previous truck, and I really like them. From a longevity perspective, they've held up really well. I probably had 15,000 miles or so on them on my previous truck, maybe even a little bit more than that, and this truck now has a hair under 50,000 miles. So they've been performing really well, and they have a lifetime warranty. So I've been very, very pleased with the Bilstein shocks. Front suspension upgrades, that's all I've done. Nothing else has changed. You can kind of say that your tire, in essence, is part of your suspension because it acts as an airbag, right? So a softer, more compliant tire can certainly give you a smoother ride. And instead of putting G-rated tires like I have, which is what I prefer because of their strength and their load carrying capability, you could probably go to like a F-rated tire, and it would be a slightly more compliant tire, and it would give you a little bit better ride, believe it or not. So a lot of brands carry a commercial spec tire, but in an F rating versus a G rating, and that might be an option for you if you are looking to smooth out the ride without doing crazy suspension upgrades. But up front, yeah, pretty much all I've done are the front shocks and then the tires. In the back is a different story. So on this truck, I opted for a very simple upgrade. I have the Bilstein shocks, but then I also have the air ride system or the Airlift system in the back. So the Airlift system was a system that was added aftermarket, and this is the 5,000 pound rated system with all stainless steel hardware versus the 7,500 pound rated system that had non-stainless steel hardware, and it didn't have the internal joust bumper. If you're wondering what that is, it's like a bump stop, but it's built into the airbag. And that was really critical for me. So I was willing to go to a slightly lower capacity system, but one that had that extra safety protocol built into it just in the event that an airbag failed. Doesn't happen very often, but let's say a hose comes loose or tears off or gets damaged and you lose all the air out of your system, at least there's still a bumper in place to prevent the system from bottoming out, and that was really important to me. From a reliability perspective, the system's been flawless. I was really skeptical on how well the actual compressor, which is actually made by Viair, would hold up, and I thought it would have failed by now, to be honest with you, but it hasn't. It still works well, system still kicks in the way it's supposed to, and it's worked absolutely flawless. The only problem I've had is at the time the system was put in, the remote control for it to adjust air pressure was, I don't know how it connected. I don't know what protocol it connected with, but it just didn't have a lot of range. So I pretty much have to stand at the back of the truck to adjust the airbag pressure. Whereas I know the newer systems are Bluetooth. They have much greater range, and you can keep everything mounted up front, so you don't have to worry about that. Part of the problem with my system is the fact that when it was installed, they put the compressor way, way, way back in the truck. Had they put it more along the center frame rail or in this mid area, I probably wouldn't have dealt with that problem. And I've thought about relocating it, but honestly, I didn't feel like drilling into the frame or attaching it like that, so I just figured I'd keep it the way it is, and it's been working fine. But yeah, so in the back, really, it's a simple story. I have Bilstein Shocks back there, again, modified. I had to put a different eyelet bushing in to be able to get it to fit. And then I have the Airlift suspension or airbag suspension kit back there, the 5000 series stainless with the compressor and the joust bushings built into it. So again, very simple upgrades to this truck in terms of suspension, shocks and an airbag system. That's really it. The tires on the back are pretty much the same tires that you would get on a lot of F450s, so that I wouldn't really consider that an upgrade, considering the fact that, again, Continental is the OEM supplier for the F450 in terms of the tires. They may have switched recently, but at the time I bought my truck, and even several years past that, that's what they were using. Now, do I recommend doing an upgrade like Silastic Shackles? So you guys are going to have to go back, just type in Silastic Shackles, Big Truck, Big RV in the search, and you'll see the videos I made on those. Made several videos. I installed them on my F450, my white F450. I had 2 trucks before this one. It was a 2016 previous body style F450, and they did what they were designed to do. They absolutely performed as advertised. The challenge with putting them on an F450 is that you have this large contraption on the back. It's actually a vibration dampener that Ford puts on the frame to reduce some of the vibration in the chassis because of the commercial chassis that this is on, the wheels and tires and all of that stuff. And you have to remove it. So you remove that for it to fit. And then once you put it in place, it kind of helps remove some of that vibration, but I still felt that there was a bit of chassis vibration that was still there when you get up to highway speeds, and I didn't want to remove it off of this truck. I don't know if Silastic still produces their product, so you still have to remove it or not. I haven't really looked into their product in a while. On my white F450, I can honestly tell you, when you're unladen, not towing, you don't have a fifth wheel over the back, they do make a huge improvement in terms of ride quality. They absolutely do. And if you're wondering what a Silastic Shackle is, it's essentially this kind of rubberized spring bushing that uses rubber instead of, like a spring material, and it is vulcanized to the inside of this round steel housing, and the rubber kind of twists, almost like Timbren suspension. It's very very similar. And it replaces your back shackle hanger, so essentially it acts as this rubber bushing between your leaf spring and your shackle hanger to provide you a bit more cushioning and dampening whenever you're driving over rough roads. And it does a good job. I would say, at first, I had this belief that it probably reduced shock and vibration in the cab of the truck, probably by about 30%. It was pretty extreme. But then after about 6 months, I'm going to say it probably felt a little less than that. It probably felt like it was more in the 20% range. But it could have all been kind of placebo. It could have been me just feeling like it kind of went away because it's an F450, it's still going to have kind of a rough ride. Now, if you have a 350 or a 250, it may do wonders. I don't specifically know how it performed on some of those trucks. I can just tell you how it performed on my 450. A challenge you would have, though, is once you hitched up to like a fifth wheel and you had weight over the back, it would essentially max out the ability of that spring to move and pivot to its maximum lowered position. So you did pick up a little bit of squat in the back of your truck. If you had airbags, you could always counteract that. But yeah, it did cause a little bit of squat. And that was another reason that I really didn't feel like going back to them. Now, if you ask my wife or anybody who rides in the truck with me, they would probably tell you they would welcome that upgrade back on the truck, because it did really make the truck ride a bit smoother whenever you were unladen and you weren't towing anything. Once you were towing, it was a different story. It really didn't affect the ride much versus just having your standard suspension. And then when you look at things like Kelderman setups or any level setups or liquid springs, those are really cool setups. They really are. But you remove so much of your factory setup, and in essence, you remove the warranty that comes with that. Even though they may replace it with a warranty that they offer, still getting it worked on would essentially require you to go to a shop that can specialize in that specific setup, because you're certainly not going to be able to pull into a Ford dealership in, you know, somewhere in the middle of Idaho or somewhere in the middle of Montana and expect them to work on it, because they're probably not going to know how to work on it, and they're probably going to tell you that the warranty was voided from Ford on those components because they are no longer there. You removed them, and you'll have to get with the manufacturer of your aftermarket setup to see if they can find a place that can actually work on your setup. And that, to me, is a big deal, because if you're camping, if you're going out somewhere, the last thing you want to do is know that you can't go to a Ford dealership to fix a problem with something. Now, maybe those systems are just so dang reliable that you'll never have a failure. I'm just not really willing to bet everything on that. Same reason why I got the Airlift system that has the joust bumpers inside of the airbag, because as rare as a failure is, and I believe they have a lifetime warranty on the whole setup, if I do have a failure, I want to have some type of redundancy in place to ensure that I haven't crippled my setup and I can still tow the fifth wheel and I'm not stranded. So that was the main reason why I didn't want to go with any of those other setups, and why the setup I went with was very calculated. It was very much designed to keep overall longevity, reliability, but more importantly, serviceability in mind. Now, another one that people often ask me about are the Centromatic balancing rings. I'll walk up to the front here so you can see what I'm talking about, because you can see it well here. It's that little ring that you see right there in the wheel. And I've done a lot of videos on this as well, so you can look up Centromatic balancing rings, Big Truck, Big RV in YouTube search, and you'll find my videos on it. These are really cool, I gotta admit. You know, for most vehicles, you may not need them, simply because your wheels can be balanced properly. They're kind of designed to be balanced with either road force, standard weights, you know, clip-on style weights, and everything works out really well. But when you move to a 450, when you move to a commercial spec tire truck like this, or like a 550, or like a Ram 5500, 6500, or 4500 series, any of those trucks that usually come with something in a half size tires, 17 and a half, 19 and a half, 22 and a half, 24 and a half, you are dealing with a tire that is much more difficult to balance properly. And Centromatic balancing rings are designed to provide that Centromatic force to balance it out. So a lot of times people will throw a bag of beads inside of their tires, and I tried that. So a lot of people said, you know, you should just throw in some bags inside of your tires, called it a day. I tried that. It didn't work. We ended up having to vacuum them all out, get them out of the tire, and move to a different solution. Centromatic is very popular amongst the commercial OTR guys, the over-the-road guys, because you can literally be at like a truck stop or a border checkpoint. And if you guys don't know, there's 50-mile border checkpoints all along the border of Texas to Mexico. So a border checkpoint is within the U.S. pretty far, and you end up getting, you know, stuck in a situation where there's a whole line of trucks next to you because they're going through the commercial truck lane and you're going through the standard vehicle lane. And if you just look at the wheels and you look through them on a lot of these trucks, you'll see that they have Centromatic rings. Tons and tons of trucks that are out there. And they do a very effective job. They're very reliable. That's another big part of it too. They hold up very well, and they're designed for commercial vehicles. I think they're even manufactured around the Dallas area. But yeah, these things are super cool. I would absolutely put these on any truck that has commercial wheels and tires. Don't necessarily know if it's needed on like a 1-ton dually, like a 3500 F350, because again, the wheels and tires are relatively easy to balance out. You don't need to have this tricky system of trying to get everything dialed in perfectly like you have to on a commercial vehicle to keep them from vibrating. And they've worked really well. Very happy with the Centromatic rings. I would absolutely put those on another vehicle. I even have some that are designed to fit the fifth wheel, but to be honest with you, I keep forgetting to actually bring them with me whenever I do anything to the fifth wheel. So I might make a video on installing them on the fifth wheel, because they can certainly help on a trailer. And why is it so important to put something like this on a trailer? Because everyone complains about how RVs fall apart when you travel with them, right? Well, part of that is just because of the shock and vibration of going down the road. How much additional shock and vibration are you adding to your RV by having unbalanced tires that are causing the inside to shake like this? Just like if your vehicle didn't have balanced wheels and tires, you would see this whole number going on. And how many things could fall down? You know, how many of your sunglass holders and your drinks would be shaking around the whole time? Well, in an RV, for some reason, there's expectation set that people don't need to balance out their RV tires, and they can just have tires that are just spinning freely and you know, reacting to everything in the road. Well, in my opinion, the smoother the suspension, the smoother the ride of your RV, the less things are going to break. I think it just makes sense. So yeah, Centromatic rings on your RV are probably a really good thing, and I might make a video featuring that as well. Moving on, something that I would probably remove, a lot of people ask about it, is that strobe light mount up top. Now, it's made from, I think, a company called Larson, and it's kind of cool how it's designed. I haven't had any issues with it at all. Going through car washes, nothing. It hasn't torn off, hasn't caused any leaking. It's built well, but the top surface or the top plate is a steel plate that's mounted to aluminum. And I believe they powder coat the aluminum or anodize it or something, so it's not supposed to cause corrosion to the steel plate or the aluminum below it. But that steel plate is rusted almost to heck. I mean, it's just in really bad shape, and the light's still holding. I put a big old UV resistant zip tie around it when I first installed it, just as an extra precaution. The strobe light's essentially used for any type of emergency response stuff that I do, for hurricane, disaster recovery, stuff like that, because I go to a lot of areas that have been hit by major storms and I try to help out. And it's just an orange strobe light, so it does a really good job when there's no light, anything around, so people can know that you're working on a scene that people need to be cautious around. So I would probably remove that. I probably will remove that. I have other strobe lights on the vehicle that can substitute if I need to use them, but I don't really like how it's holding up. I'm not a big fan of having it mounted on top of the vehicle in general, so I'll probably remove that. I'm very happy with the better built toolbox that I added. If you guys didn't see the video on that, I replaced my WeatherGuard toolbox with the better built toolbox, and that thing has been really awesome. It allows me the clearance I need to make a sharp turn with my fifth wheel, which is what I wanted, and the handles, I call them shotgun latches, stick off the front above the bed rail, so I can still use my Axis bed cover back here without it essentially requiring me to get rid of the toolbox, because I love this combination. The bed cover with the toolbox has worked flawlessly, and the Axis bed cover has been absolutely amazing. I can't say, you know, enough good things about it. It's held up so well. It's a vinyl cover, or a soft cover. I don't exactly know the type of vinyl and material they use, but even in this hot Texas sun, I've never had an issue with it at all. And you guys know that I've used these on the last 3 trucks I've had, and they've worked incredibly well. I've done plenty of videos on the bed rug, the carpeted mat, or it's more of like a fiber, or a kind of a plastic fiber mat in the bed. Works really well. Just recently swapped out from the Access mat to the bed rug mat, and it's holding up just like I would expect it to, so I absolutely still recommend that. Inside, I'm running the WeatherTech floor mats. So they've been doing very well. I'm a fan of all sorts of floor mats. I've had Husky liners in there. I've had the Aries mats, which I think look absolutely amazing. And then I decided to switch to the WeatherTech. I had all of them because, if you guys recall, I did a review. It was actually a torture test on all 3 brands a couple years ago, where I subjected them to a lot of torture. I might actually do another torture test with my toy right over there. If that's something you want to see, let me know. But anyways, yeah, I decided about 6 months ago to put the WeatherTech mats inside the truck. They hold up really well. They all kind of scratch and scuff after a while, but they do a great job at what they're designed to do, which is to hold spills, protect your floor, all that stuff. I do know that there are some new floor liners that are out now, and I might do a review on some of those as well, because they're a little bit less expensive and they look super nice. So yeah, I might end up doing a review on some of the new liners that I've seen that have come out on the market relatively recently. That said, though, from an interior perspective, I haven't really done a heck of a lot of stuff. I still have that better built little rack on top of my dash to hold things. Other YouTubers have reviewed that. It works well. I don't use it that often. I mainly use it if I'm going to be mounting like a navigation or backup camera type system on it magnetically. Aside from that, you know, hitch-wise, I still run a B&W, the B&W tow and stow back here for the 3-inch receiver, which the truck has. I've gone through several different hitches to do reviews on them, like the WaySafe hitch, which I absolutely love. I love this hitch. This tends to be the most universal for me, so I can use it in all the different towing scenarios I need versus having to swap a ball out. Since all 3 of the balls are mounted to one hitch, I can just rotate it, and I have a lock on it. I have a lock on the actual assembly. No one's tried to steal it lately, so that's a good thing. And yeah, the bumpers have held up really well also. So that was when I was sponsored by Road Armor, the front bumper, which is painted ruby red. It's a, you know, part of their, I can't remember what series of bumper, their Stealth series, but I think it's the Lone Star Stealth series because it has the thinner steel tube pipe, or the smaller diameter pipe right here, and then the much larger diameter pipe that runs across the front, versus one of their other series that continues that large pipe all the way around. Since I'm not putting a lift kit, I'm not putting big wheels and tires or anything like that on the truck, I opted to go with something that was a little bit more subtle. And then I did the two-tone black with red on the front, black with ruby red on the back as well. Black oak LED lights. Shoot, that takes people way back. That was when I first started my channel. Black oak LED lights have held up phenomenally well. I've had absolutely no issues with them whatsoever. They've been super durable, haven't yellowed or haven't caused me any problems. I haven't had a single bulb burn out on them. It's been stuck on the front of my truck and all the little LED light pods forever. Even the little cheapy LED light pods that I have on the outside that are kind of DOT compliant because they create a nice cutoff line to avoid oncoming glare, those have actually held up. I haven't had any problems with those, you know, which is crazy, and those are like $100. So yeah, everything's been holding up really well. I've been very happy with the truck. No major mechanical issues aside from the sunroof issue I had probably a year and a half ago where one of the tracks was broke. And the only reason is because I don't ever use the sunroof. And the one time I decided to use it, the thing was pretty much stuck in place. I made a little video on that kind of pointing out you need to open it every now and then, especially after you wash it. They make some lubricant that you can put in the little seal area just to keep it from sticking. But when it sticks and then it has to pull down, it basically pops into place and it can damage the rails and damage the plastic track that kind of holds everything up. So you definitely want to keep an eye on that. Haven't had any emissions related issues, haven't had any transmission related issues. Batteries on the truck have kind of been a bit of a saga, so I've had to replace batteries a couple times, and now I have the cheapest AGM batteries I could find at Walmart just to see how they hold up, because the Ford batteries sure as heck have not held up well. So yeah, we have some Everstart AGM batteries in here, and so far everything's been working really well. If I hit remote start, thing starts right up, no problem at all. Had the batteries in here now for several months, and they've been holding up exceptionally well, even in this incredibly hot Texas heat. But I can't think of anything else to talk about. Everything's been working well in the truck, and these are just a little update. Alcoa wheels still look fantastic, super easy to clean, and the way I clean is just by driving it through a car wash that fits my truck. I never actually touch those wheels, and they just, it's crazy, just the pressure spray of the cleaner just gets everything off, and they always seem to look good. Guys, if you haven't had a chance, please take a moment, subscribe to my channel. I may throw some of the products I've talked about in the description of this video if you're interested in any of them. Hopefully this answers a lot of the questions that you guys have had about the truck. Everything's been working pretty well. Guys, if you haven't had a chance, please take a moment, subscribe to my channel, give me a thumbs up, and we'll talk to you again very soon.